Can I get an annulment? Hey there, my name is Ron Payne. I'm the CEO and managing partner here at Payne Law in Kernersville, North Carolina, where we help families navigate life's important decisions. One of the most common questions we get in a family law situation, in other words, maybe you've only been married a short time and it's just not working out. The person you thought you married is not the person you actually married. And so your question is, well, can I get an annulment? We've only been married 30 days. And we got home from the honeymoon, and it was not what I expected. They were not who I thought they were. Unfortunately, the answer in North Carolina is almost always no. So the reasons you can get an annulment in North Carolina are, one, turns out you married a cousin. So if you've married your first cousin or a sibling, turns out you didn't know they were your sibling. Stranger things have happened, especially in the advent of 23andMe and DNA testing. So you did a DNA test thinking you were going to learn all about your cool family, and it turned out you had the same mom and dad. Whoops! That would have been good information to know ahead of time. So then, yes, you can get an annulment. And what that means is that you can petition the court and you can get your marriage annulled, which means it didn't exist from the start with. And you don't have to wait. That's one of the rare times you don't have to wait the full 365 days to get a divorce under North Carolina law. Secondly, you can get an annulment if you got married under false pretenses. Now, that doesn't mean they were just a liar, unfortunately. What that means is they said, "I'm pregnant." And you said, "Oh no." And you ran to the courthouse and you put a ring on it and you got married. And then no child is born. So in the next 10 months, no baby shows up. And it turns out they were lying. If there was a baby and that didn't work out, and so now you've got a rainbow baby, that's not usually going to qualify. And so, unfortunately, then you're going to need to pursue a traditional divorce. But that might be, if they told you there was a kiddo and it turns out they weren't pregnant at all, that's where false pretenses comes in. The third option is if somebody, if you get married and you say, "I can't wait to have babies," and they go, "Yay!" And then you find out after you get married that, oh, by the way, they're firing blanks. They're not able to produce children. They're not able to conceive offspring. Then you can get a divorce, because that's essentially it's a false pretenses claim again, right? Now, you can't just be like, "Oh, we're impotent. We have to get a divorce. We can get avoided marriage." No, you've got to have medical evidence to support that. But if you do have that evidence, then you might be eligible for an annulment under North Carolina law. The next reason you can get an annulment under North Carolina law is if they are not of sound mind. Again, you're going to need medical documentation to show that they were incapable of consent. They didn't know they were getting married. They didn't know to whom they were getting married. They didn't understand the marriage contract in a true, they didn't know what they were doing sense. That marriage is voidable and can be set aside via an annulment. The last time in which you can get an annulment is if one of the spouses was under the age of 16. Means they were not competent. So 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds can get married. And there's conditions and such on that, and that'll be for another video. If they were under the age of 16 and you didn't know that, maybe "I'm 18, let's run away to Vegas and get married." And then it turns out you get married and turns out they weren't 18. Then you can get an annulment. And unless there was a court order that said you can get married, because then all the facts were on the table, right? If they petitioned the court to get married between the ages of 14 to 16 because the wife is pregnant, and so she said, "Look, I know I'm 15, but we need to get married. I'm having a baby," then, and that's obviously one of those throwbacks to kind of how the law used to be 50, 100 years ago. It's been in the law for a long time. A court order says you can get married, then you're not going to be able to annul that. All of those options I've talked to you about are voidable marriages, meaning you have to petition the court, you have to show the proof that they were impotent or that you were closer than first cousins, etc., and you can go from there. And you petition the court and you can ask, and they'll render you a divorce. The other reason you can get a annulment, and it means a void marriage, like it never happened to begin with, if it turns out that your spouse was still married to somebody else. You can't be married in North Carolina to more than one person at a time. In some states that's legal, it's not here. And so if it turns out that they are married to another spouse at the time you get married, that's void. That marriage is void ab initio, which means it's void like it never happened. You can't approve that. So in other situations where we're talking about annulment, you can approve whether or not. So if everybody ends up consenting to it, it might render your ability to get an annulment void. In other words, if they're incompetent, you can't make that okay because they didn't know what they were doing. However, if they were shooting blanks and you knew it, then at some point you understood, you knew, and you ratified that marriage. You can't just go back 20 years later and be like, oh, I didn't know, when you knew, right? So there's reasons you can't do that. But if they were married to somebody else at the time you got married, even after they pass away, that marriage can be set aside because it was a bigamous marriage, and that's just not permitted under North Carolina law. So just to give a quick recap, first, if you are marrying a first cousin or closer, then you can get an annulment. Now, I do want to give, there is one more caveat to that I need to give. If it is a double first cousin, then you can get an annulment. If it's a single first cousin, meaning you're only first cousin on one side, then that's legal in North Carolina, so that wouldn't be grounds for annulment. But if it's a double first cousin situation, then that is a situation which you could get an annulment. So you've got cousins, or if you're turns out they're your sibling and you didn't know, so that's incest, right? And then your second reason is false pretenses, meaning you thought she was pregnant, it turns out she wasn't. If either spouse was impotent at the time of the marriage, or if one of the spouses was not of sound mind or body, or if they were already married to somebody else, then those are the reasons you can get an annulment under North Carolina law. If you think you might be eligible for an annulment, or you realize you're not eligible for an annulment and you want to help make sure that you can start that 365-day clock as quick as possible so that you can finalize your divorce and move on, especially for the cases of short marriages. I once handled a divorce where the marriage had only lasted 6 months. It took us longer to get the divorce than the marriage itself lasted. And that's I hate that for anybody. Divorce is hard enough as it is, especially if you're just riding off the high of getting married and then it crashed and burned that quickly. But hey, the team here at Payne Law is here to help. We help families navigate life's important decisions, and making sure that you and your kiddos and your loved ones are protected in the event of a divorce is why we're here to help. We can help take that burden off, help take that stress off so that you can worry about living your best life, and we can make sure that you're protected moving forward. If you'd like to set up a consultation, we offer low-cost family law consultations, and you can give us a call at 336-281-6928. We offer in-person consultations, telephone consultations, Zoom consultations. It's really what works ever best for you. So we look forward to speaking to you. And if we can be of any help in the interim, like and subscribe here on YouTube. Check out our other videos. Check out our website. And until then, take care and have a great day.